Hey everyone, I'm actually prefacing before my own introduction because as I was in the middle of recording this video, I realized that the forum thread I'm going to use for it is actually one that began back in 2022 and was recently brought back on the official forum. So it was like brought to the top of the list. It was Necro. So I go through most of the video without realizing that, making the realization towards the end, and then goes from there. So just wanted to give you a heads up. I know that now, but you know, I didn't know when I started recording. So enjoy. Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Now, I haven't done a forum reading video in, I don't know, it's been like a month and a half maybe, so I figured it was about time to go ahead and do that again. So I was thinking, well, you know, what am I looking for here? Well, I do know that there is the Q&A thread for PAX East, which I'm sure is hilarious because they are always hilarious, and maybe we'll save that for a little bit closer until PAX East itself. So then I thought, well, I'll do the one where I go through the popular forum topics and just see what we got going on there. But one topic in particular grabbed my attention, and I wanted to do a video solely about that topic. And that is a forum that reads Final Fantasy XIV Hot Takes. Now, hot takes are always kind of weird because I feel like people misinterpret having an opinion with it being a hot take. But that being said, this is the official forums we're talking about here. So this could be a gold mine. And if this video actually gets released, it means that I thought it was, well, at least a silver mine, I suppose. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be taking a look at some Final Fantasy XIV hot takes over on the official forum. And hopefully it'll be hilarious. Before we get started though, I do want to thank the sponsor for this video, Magic Spoon. Cut to add that I totally made for a different video several days ago. You know, I actually used to love cereal as my go-to snack. Pour a bunch of dry cereal in a bowl and just eat it on the side of my desk while I'm doing work or while I'm playing games. Sometimes I would just eat out of the bag too. Sorry, Mom. But several years ago, I just stopped buying cereal altogether because it was full of sugar and a bunch of other things I just didn't want to eat. So when Magic Spoon reached out to me and wanted to sponsor a video, you can bet that I jumped on that one pretty quick. I mean, there's a lot to say about it. It's a high quality cereal with all sorts of accolades on its rap sheet. 140 calories per serving, 13 to 14 grams of protein per serving, 4 grams of net carbs per serving. And for me, the biggest thing is the 0 grams of sugar. Not to mention it's gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and keto-friendly. I've got their variety pack here with 4 great flavors: peanut butter, cocoa, fruity, and frosted. They're all good on their own, but I personally like to get a little crazy and mix the peanut butter and the cocoa. That's really good. I'm recording this at like 9 p.m. and it's been a long day, so this is definitely hitting the spot right now. So if you want to try out Magic Spoon and support the channel, then you can use the QR code that's on the screen right now. You can just scan that with your phone real quick, or you can use the link in the description. If you use discount code Mr. Happy, you will save $5 on any order of Magic Spoon. And it has a money-back guarantee, a 100% happiness guarantee from Magic Spoon. If you don't like it, they will send you your money back. So scan the QR code or use the link, and don't forget the discount code Mr. Happy to save $5. With that, let's get to the video. All right, so let's look at the premise of this hot takes, the very original post that says, as the title suggests, please share your hot takes on 14 here. I'll go first. The music really isn't all that memorable. Oh no, you've chosen violence right out the gate. How could you do that? Outside of a couple of tracks, I keep many other games OSTs in rotation in my regular listening, but not 14. Furthermore, often I hear it once when content is new. I'll flip the music off and just pull up something on Spotify or YouTube. I think the end point there is not that surprising. I mean, it doesn't matter how good something is. If you have to listen to the same song over and over again for the same content over and over again, it's completely reasonable to want to hear something else. But man, isn't that memorable? Oh, I mean, maybe Final Fantasy music just connects differently with me, but I have so many memorable tracks in this game. I mean, across all of the Final Fantasy franchise, sure, but in 14 in particular, probably have over 100 that I could just name that I love off the top of my head. Oh, what a post. There's 1,300 posts, and that's the first one? Oh, maybe this won't be funny. Maybe this will be painful. I don't know. All right, in the very second post, let's see if this is any better than the first. The crafting system in this game isn't fun. Would rather have traditional MMO crafting where you AFK process materials than one-click craft. See, now that I think falls under the category of not being a hot take and strictly being an opinion. Because disliking, I guess, a particular, like not resonating with a particular feature of an MMO is, I don't know, that's not a hot take to me. Like, I'm not super into the crafting, but I also don't want it to be anything else because of my own. Like, what I want, you know, I want it to be what the people who want to do it want it to be. So I just have a different outlook. But this is one of those cases where I totally get it. I don't engage with the crafting either. And realistically, if it was completely mindless, I would probably interact with it more. But, I mean, that is what it is. You can't like everything about a game. You can't realistically expect to engage with everything game. So not a hot take, I don't think. Oh my goodness. So I skipped a few posts because some were responding to one another. And this isn't a hot take. This is like a hot thesis. I don't even know where to begin with all the text that's on. Look at this. You could have just wrote the first thing. Casual players are the blood and organs of the game. More hardcore players, the bones. I think hardcore players oversell their importance, but casual players who believe there's no value in content derelicted, if temporarily, at hardcore players. That's not a hot take. That's literally like basic consumerism, and by no means should be met with any sort of malice. But what is below it? Because if the first part's not hot, what is this? I don't think it's important ultimately that things are hyper restrictive, just delayed in some fashion. I mean, I don't believe content just needs to be for X. People go on and on about how content needs a challenge for everyone forever. I think they overstate the matter. And aside particularly in that thought might be the difficulty should be more fun, not because of the fun of the pain. Like grinding ammo may have been fun for someone in Realm Reborn, but overall it's just something that shouldn't be repeated. There exists a long precedence that difficulty is simply to enhance your fun, easy and hard, both enjoying the same content as RPGs. Of course, this is multiplayer, so if you allowed to both exist at the same time with the same reward, that would lead to people who choose difficulty and don't want to simply optimize. Famous quote, players will optimize the fun out of the game. So delays and changes in rewards rates and such as the multiplayer function is roughly similar in time costs and absolutely acceptable. Beyond that, the game is roughly ahead and it follows, and I am in agreement. You don't need to keep old content similar to time costs because it would become prohibitive for all except a narrow band of players, but rather if one can make the content still fun while open to a larger band of players, that would be better. Hence, I am from the beginning always been rooting for Blue Mage to organically fit into a solo job as the primary function on all accounts, meaning progression is designed for solo players in mind and not anything else, but may have some party stuff or party stuff on the side as an aside because that is all well and that is all fun as well. I mentioned Blue Mage simply because that is content that doesn't need to self-nerf itself as much. Rather, Blue Mage just comes in with massive orbital cannons to balance out the matter. This doesn't mean a one-shot bosses. Again, fun is more important, but it just means you could do stuff that seems impossible without being a god-tier player, which is the case in a lot of situations where now you have the full Blue Mage kit, so that's nice. I do wish they smoothed out Blue Mage progression, though, as it still has some wrinkles on it. I don't know what the point is. I think they're just saying that content should be made not for specific small groups in mind. I don't think any of this is a hot take. It's just soup. It's word soup, and perfectly reasonable word soup, but word soup. Okay, gonna skip around a little bit more because again, there's 1,300 posts in this. This could be videos for months as far as I know. Let's look at this one. This one's got a little bit more text, but it's not as wordy as the last one. I think the game invests too little time in getting side content outside of gold saucer minigames done right, both in polish and especially base concept and technical affordances. Most initial attempts are painfully bare bone, as if attempting to recoup player hours played recoup player hours played per dev hour spent even in that first go round. Even after feedback has come in, there's minimal improvement between iterations, largely because the initial design was so unambitious. I think that's, I don't know if I would agree with it down to the word, but I mean, we've seen this plenty of times. So again, I don't think this is that much of a hot take. I mean, look at Eureka's initial implementation and then the direction they wanted to take it in Pagos and the 180 they took in Pyros. That's why I feel like the minimal improvements isn't always true. I feel like Animos to Pagos speaks to that, but Pagos to Pyros doesn't. Pagos to Pyros is a clear, we took feedback and made improvements to it. But then you also have to consider how much of this take is being derivative against things they personally don't find enjoyment in already, and thus want it to become something they do enjoy, but it's just not meant for them, and it kind of combines with the previous. It's hard to tell like where a lot of these originate from, but again, I don't think that's a hot take. Hotter still, a central side content form that ties the rest together would actually be good for a given expansion. It just has to be done well. For instance, imagine if just another diadem rehash, an utterly disjointed alliance raid, and another 2 years of just the same old expert spam and isolated tiers. We'd actually gone off to revitalize the light waste using the connections between stasis and echo time. Well, I mean, you know, we did, yeah. I mean, rather than the light waste being a small vista, we could actually go out and explore. See, this is one of those things where it's like, You want the world, in this case, quite literally. But we achieved the thing that you stated, and like I get it. Like I totally get wanting the empty to like gradually refill with life, and for us to explore it, refilling with life. But for me, I don't feel like that needs to be so expansive of a thing. I think that the empty, we all thought it was potentially going to be the exploration area, but you know, we knew at some point that it wasn't going to be. So there's that, I suppose. However, the end comment here, near in that context could actually make sense. In open world and instance content could actually share an interesting synergetic connection. No. The near content is stuffed in a corner. It has no relevance to anything. Leave it in that corner. It's there. It's fine. It's Yoko Taro's little playground within Final Fantasy XIV. It's fine. Leave it there. It's fine over there. There. That way. Okay, we haven't had an actual like hot take. Like the first one was such a shotgun. Like I don't know where to go. Dungeons should be removed and instead have single player duties. All right, we're pulling it back, I guess. Yeah, removing dungeons from an MMO is probably not a good idea. Heck, as we've gone down from 3 dungeons a patch to 2 and then 1, it's been a huge amount of backlash from people who literally enjoy just logging in and doing a few casual dungeons with their friends, or using those dungeons to expand the world and the lore like they did back with the hard mode. Perfectly reasonable things, but removing them altogether and only having single player duties with trust. I mean, the thing is, this is making us choose between 2 things when Endwalker has literally been us getting both of those. Like Shadowbringers started with trust system, which was renamed to duty support with trusts being just the avatars. But in Endwalker, the whole point has been to kind of regulate these 2 ideas into the same thing. So the fact that even with what Endwalker's done, they think that that is not good enough and we should just only have the single player duties that's something. Okay, this one is one that's so short that there's no way I can't have already read it before the question begins. Casual and hardcore have no meaning. You know, I agree with that more than people might think, because I think people form an idea of what makes casual and what makes hardcore when there is no one answer to either of those things. Some people look at raiders and instantly assume them to be hardcore, whereas you have raiders that maybe raid 1 or 2 nights a week for a lockout or 2 at most, and maybe even less. And would you consider them hardcore? No, they're casually raiding. But then you've got people like, I'll use Angelus Demonus. You know, he does deep dungeon content, and he does that content hardcore. He does everything else casually. He doesn't really spend a lot of his time doing other things. He creates content for Deep Dungeon hardcore. That's where he just chooses to spend. But even then, he's still spending, X amount of hours a night. He's not playing 16 hours a day. He's playing, I'd say a reasonable amount of hours for someone who has the time to stream and chooses to do that on their nights, as a living or otherwise. It's like, there's just so many facets to it that you can't, I feel like it's really hard to call someone all of one thing, but no one's going to take the time to break it down individually. So that actually the least hot take and the most interesting take so far. All right, moving on to page 3. Dude, this is the 22nd response again out of almost 1,400. This video could be forever. We could just be here from now on till the end of time. I'm going to have to bookmark this and come back to it at some point. Anyway, apparently referring to ultimate titles and weapons as shinier BK mentor crowns was a hot take. That's going to depend on your experience with the people who have them. Because I'm going to be honest, most people who clear ultimates don't want to do mentor style things. Like they want to participate in really hard content. They don't want to actually... Oh, and you know what? Now it makes it sound even more like a mentor crown because half the people with mentor crowns don't want to do it either. In that case, a lot of things are similar to mentor crowns. There's just, ooh, shiny. Let me pop it on my head. Let me hold it in my hands. Yeah, now that I say that out loud, I think they're right. I don't think it's a hot take. Like I know I do it because I really want the challenge. And that's it. I don't even care. I didn't even got my Omega weapon. I don't use the title. I don't use the weapon. I just wanted to beat it. And I feel that way about most of them. But when I think about like the average, this isn't too far off the pulse, I feel. Hop down a few more posts. Seen a lot of negativity on the forums lately compared to positivity. Well, I mean, that's kind of normal. People are always quicker to complain about something than they are to praise something. And so when anything that is negative does happen, you know, it comes out of the woodworks way more. Yes, enough to make me feel like this is a hot take. Endwalker was the best expansion, and I loved everything. Well, it's not done yet, so maybe don't act like it's over. We still got some time left. It was very memorable to me and a fantastic conclusion to the game. Yeah, you know, I could see why they feel that way about it, because I think there's a post like a few posts ago that says Endwalker was the worst expansion, or has been the worst expansion, and I kind of see both sides of it, because there's things about Endwalker that we've clearly gotten that I've loved, or at least I've loved what they tried to do or wanted to do. But there's also been things I genuinely don't understand. Things like the 2-minute meta and the direction that's been going versus, you know, Criterion's actual content, then versus its reward structure, then looking at Deep Dungeon and its reward structure and how good it is. And then it's like, I just keep ping-ponging off things I like and don't like. And it's like, it's easy to criticize and praise at the same time. But this was one of those ones where you shouldn't feel like how you feel is a hot take about something at all. Don't be surprised if somebody goes, "Oh, I can't believe you said that." But at the same time, you know, this is one of those, if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. And feel free to talk about it either way, I suppose. And then the one right below it, I noticed an abbreviation. So here's a hot take or 2-in-1 that gets me a lot of hate. Shadowbringers was the worst expansion and Stormblood the best one. You know, I actually, again, I think depending on how you value your time in the game, you could still, I kind of get it. So with Shadowbringers, you know, we had a lot of the delays because everything was falling apart around the world. Still is pretty much. And so if you were someone who kind of leaned on 14's normalcy and the rate at which the content was introduced, or if you were someone who was specifically looking at hardcore content, like there were lots of things, lots of little things that were lacking other than the story. But I don't know what they're referring to. I don't know what quantifies worst expansion. Do they mean they hated the story the most? Do they mean all the delays and the content that was pushed out of it, like the ultimate, or the, like, maybe they didn't like Boja? Like, I guess I don't know. And for Stormblood, a lot of hardcore raiders, at least, which is why I think that's where they're going with this, do generally like Stormblood and its overall content between Eureka, Baldesion Arsenal, getting 2 ultimates, having a pretty solid Savage tier across the board. I generally liked 24-man series. Like, all of those things kind of pile up and made Stormblood liked. And then even, you know, those of us who liked the initial Blue Mage release and going through and collecting the spells and doing the raids and all, like there's room to agree and disagree. So I get why saying that in a bubble would be a hot take, but if you were talking strictly about content, I kind of get it. Another hot take. I've read one of these persons already. I mean, I guess that just works out. Viera and Hrothgar should have never been implemented. Ooh, especially with how half done, I mean, quite literally for a while. Their development resources could have went to expanding the existing race's customization. So the first part, I kind of get, like, here's the Viera ears and the fact that they started with only one of the 2 genders and we weren't even guaranteed to get the other one. Still waiting on female Hrothgar. That'll be 7.0 most likely. I sort of get it, but I don't think the development resources going into existing races would have changed a whole lot. We know that in terms of your character creation, they're quite limited in what they can expand upon. And then in terms of the race customization itself, I mean, we've seen them continue to grant race customization with hairstyles and whatnot, and then just not finish some of the stuff with, like, Viera. So I feel like they still did both at the same time. They had the 2 half-released races and then continued to expand upon the other races and never finished the other ones. So if anything, I'd prefer they finally cut back on the things for the other races and finish what they started across both Viera and Hrothgar and prioritize that. So this one's got 7 numbers, so I'm assuming it's 7 takes for the price of 1. So maybe we've read some already, but I'm kind of drawn to this post. This community isn't nearly as friendly as people try to preach it to be. It's snooty, passive-aggressive, and mean girl. See, that's the internet. People treat that like it's an individual community thing. No, that's the internet. And the more people that coalesce in one location on the internet, the more of that you get. And those people stand out like a sore thumb. You can't avoid them. It's unavoidable. So I've been around since 1.0, you know, for Realm Reborn. It's always been like that, but it's always in pockets. And you can choose not to be a part of those things. But people are people. They're like drama machines. So I get it. At the same time, it's like it's a lot to blame it on one game and more to say it's just existence, I suppose. People rely too much on others to carry them, not related to casuals, hardcore, just people in general. I mean, they said it themselves, people in general. I mean, I feel like this is, so far, this is a complaining about the existence of people more than it is about the game. So it's not even a hot take, I feel. 3, Endwalker was a disappointing expansion. Man, I've loved Endwalker so far. I mean, it's had its problems, but like, it's been, at least for me, nice to have a ton of things to tackle constantly, even if I wish some of them would last longer and better reward structures. Like, it was cool doing the first raid tier into DSR, into the second raid tier, into Criterion Savage, into the latest Ultimate, into Deep Dungeon, into the next Savage, into the next Criterion. Like, I'm eating good, but that's just me. 4, I feel like there are too many try-hard uwu kawaii players. Try too hard to be cute. Why can't they want to be cute, man? Why can't someone want their character to be cute? I mean, it's an RPG role-playing game, so, you know, some people get really into the role-play and others don't. I just, if I'm not feeling the vibes, I just leave. I don't worry about how hard they're trying. I just don't get involved. 5, I feel like the lack of information about the islands is a sign it's going to be side content quickly and easily forgotten. I mean, it's going to be forgotten after this expansion. I felt that way before it even came out, because they gave us, so we know we're supposed to get another island in 0.4. They actually outlined everything for it when they went over all of the expansion plans for like every patch. It's a very broad overview, but it's a new island in 0.4/0.5 and updates to the island. And we've already seen, you know, a few rank upgrades, a few new wildlife things. But yeah, I mean, I never expected it to be anything more than, if they update anything at all, it's a couple new ranks, a new building to customize, like tiny things added to it, you know? So I kind of understand and agree with that. What Square Enix has done to Vayner and Hrothgar is more offensive than impressive. Finish the races and add new customization to older races. I mean, I said that, yeah, I mean, I kind of had a post about that. And 7, we don't need more classes or races. Well, races, they kind of agree. They want to finish female Hrothgar, They want to release female Hrothgar. And then they don't want to add any more. They said that these would probably be the last 2 races. The only reason they even added the other genders was because of the general outcry for them. So they agree with you there. But classes, see, that I don't agree with, because classes are something that are always exciting to get something new for. Now, that depends on how they handle said classes. And I feel like more often than not, they run into issues with old class updates than brand new classes. But that's just me. But no, these were all funny, but reasonable, I'd say. I'll probably read a couple more, and then I think my brain needs time to rest before doing anything else. Based on my experience here, my real hot take is there needs to be little to no new content in 7.0, and we need a major engine upgrade or replacement instead. Ooh, so I'm going to say 2 things. 1, that would have already needed to be in the works. They can't just, like, that wouldn't be something they could read this and then be like, you know what, that guy's right. Like, that would have had to have been an active decision from like before 6.0 even released, because it's going to take years for anything like that to happen. And in isolation too, like it can't even be like the same people doing both. But also no new content. Ooh, like, I get it. Like, I do want an engine upgrade as well, but if you have nothing new, your game is dead. Especially for a fully, hey, the expansion's out. Nothing's new, but it's better. Go do the old Ultimates on the new engine. It'll be great. That would be a killer. I call it a hot take because most people seem to think you can get an engine upgrade and 80 hours of story content, and they gotta have my MSQ. I mean, they are right in that realistically, they'd probably have to stop working on the game or hire essentially the equivalent of a brand new team to make said engine and also train everyone else in the new engine while simultaneously, updating stuff for the. It's an unrealistic thing to expect. So, like, their thought process of what they need to sacrifice to get it done is true, but to say they should do it is, yeah, it's a different story. So I was reading through these, and I'm making a realization that I didn't make when I started recording the video. But the video is still, as far as I'm concerned, as applicable as it was before. This thread was initially posted back in February of 2022. I realized that because I was reading through the responses and I was about to reply to one that says, we haven't gotten an ultimate since 2019. And I'm like, what? And then I realized, wait, February 2022. They're right. At that time, we had not. So I want to find one that's like recent. So I'm going to go to the very end of the thread and see what there is. All right, well, jumping towards the end, this one was actually posted yesterday for my recording of this. And I'm going to make this the last one because now I'm very curious to read through. But there's a lot of posts here at the end that are just like commenting off each other and aren't takes compared to the start of the thread. So I'm going to add a disclaimer at the start that says, when I started it, I didn't realize it was a Necro thread. But either way, this will be the last one I do for this video. They should make the raiding scene more desirable instead of cordoning off somebody played Final Fantasy XI, I can tell you that. Savage from normal and such. I think we should be given totally new encounters, cutscenes, and story along with the higher tier rating. And the raiders should be forced to sit through it like Praetorian. No. The first time. I don't care if first time or because Praetorium, there is no like the first time. It's every time. So don't make that analogy. Rating hasn't ever felt quite as fulfilling as it did during A Realm Reborn and 2.1 to 2.5. Wait. Rating hasn't ever felt quite as fulfilling as it did during A Realm Reborn and A Realm Reborn 2.1 to 2. Okay, so they mean 2.0 to 2.5. Okay, that was just a weird way of writing it. So maybe I want more raids like Binding Coil. Higher difficulty, no Savage, normal dichotomy, except for, the inception of Savage because devs were salty about the super fast second coil clip. What do you mean super fast? It took almost 3 weeks before second coil was beaten. There was, yeah, maybe the first couple. No, even that. No, they were salty about, and I don't know if salty is the right word. They didn't like that people came up with cheese strats for all of them, like skipping most of the last phase in turn 6, or not having to deal with Renauds after you had 4 of them in 7, or just stacking up for things in 8 instead of actually doing them. And like there were things they clearly fixed in Savage. They weren't salty about super fast clear groups, I don't think. As it is not to mention, Second Coil Savage barely even had DPS checks at all. In fact, I would say it had no DPS checks at all. It was all mechanic checks. As it is now, due to the divorce of difficulty from story progress, you do the harder fights simply for the sake of doing them. The reward structure is actually non-reward once you actually get good at 14. The entry-level gear is all that's required. Absolutely true. Which is why when an ultimate is coming, like when there's some hard content that requires gear coming after a Savage tier, it helps a little bit, but then the reward structure for that thing needs to be okay. And even then, they hold on, I've had this discussion a million times, they hold on to the weekly lockout system for way too long. There's a greater ludonarrative dissonance too, ever since Heaven's Ward, with there being one form of the fight that's pure fiction and the real form of the fight that's no real challenge. It makes the warriors of light that do Savage seem kind of insane. I'm an extra hard badass because I beat the minstrel's imagination. Yeehaw. This is at the core, yes, they're saying they missed the way the Binding Coil was done. And that's a hot take because a lot of people don't feel that way. So thus it kind of falls in the category. But I would say that they're not alone. I don't feel that way. I wouldn't mind if it was because at the end of the day, I'm going to do it anyway. So like, it doesn't matter to me at all. No, it's not like I'm going to shirk away from a challenge because I don't get another cutscene. But I will say that beating turn 12 and getting the Flames of Truth cutscene is one of the most rewarding ways you could have encouraged me to do that raid tier. Now, that was before I knew it was there. And then when it happened, when I was finally doing it, I lost my mind. And Coil, the final Coil tier in general, is the highest quality raid tier I think we've had overall, between them adding voice acting to a lot of major scenes, the Flames of Truth cutscene, the actual quality of the bosses being quite high. I think that's a tier that's overall nailed. And to be fair, it's nailed, then nails in turn 9, which is second Coil. So I totally get this one, but I don't agree. I definitely feel like having them separated and being able to do the story. I think now that we have the 1 week delay, especially as long as they keep it, I'm definitely in the boat of having a normal mode for everyone to enjoy the story and discuss the story and not have to worry about being spoiled because they're not a hardcore raider, yada, yada, yada. And then having the Savage for the people who want an extra challenge. I think that's better. Also, sometimes Savage gives you a little bit of a look into what if stories, or even like gives you slightly more interesting details about certain things. The same with the ultimate encounters. So I think that there's room for interpretive storytelling through those things you can, figure out just based on the mechanics that are Savage exclusive. And I like that. Okay, but that is, those are some hot takes. Man, I can't believe I didn't realize how old this thread was. I don't go to the forums. It was the first thing there, so I clicked it and I was like, oh, this will make a great video. So either way, that's it. That's the video for now. We'll take a look at this. Oh, do I have a hot take that I want to share? I'm pretty lukewarm because I see the pluses and minuses in everything. So for me, what would I consider a hot take for me? Okay, I've got one, but it has an asterisk next to it because I have to say other than. Other than the actual story present in the patches, I think Heavensward was by far the worst expansion in Final Fantasy XIV. And I keep in mind, I'm saying expansion, so I'm not including A Realm Reborn being 2.0 off of 1.0. The main reason being is the developers just seem to have no idea how to keep people playing their game for like the first 2/3 of it. You had just content that was designed for such a small portion of the community, kind of destroying people's interests in core aspects of the game, followed up by some of the worst grinds they could have added and some of the lowest quality new stuff like Diadem that they could have tried that was abandoned alongside of it's just all the content they were trying, you know, going back to that post from earlier that mentioned how they start with very bare bones stuff. Heavensward was the worst of it. Then they had, you know, a new extreme trial in 3.1 that most people still struggled with and couldn't beat and really didn't help bridge the gap with the problem people are having with Gordius. And then they had the anima weapon, which everyone hated to grind when it first came out. Then there was, of course, Diadem, like I said, so that didn't go over super well. Then 3.2 came out, and it was like a little better. There's like some things that were slightly better, but Midas caused the same problems Gordius did, and then Sephiroth was murdering people as much as Titan did, so people were complaining about that. And that just kept happening all of Heavensward. By the time 3.4 came around, then the problem was reversed. Creator was just like this not brain dead easy. I guess, you know, that's a little bit extreme, but it was like they went from both of those to like the polar opposite to something closer to what we have now. And while I think it was the right move, it's so clearly a designation of their struggle to find direction. Heck, they tried to do Diadem a second time in the same expansion. It didn't work. They couldn't get it right in Heavensward. But it wasn't really until the end and then going into Stormblood where it felt like they really got a grasp on what they needed to do. And from Stormblood onward, other than, you know, things like Cold Steel on launch and whatnot, it felt like they really started to gain that grasp after Heavensward. I think Heavensward could have reburied Final Fantasy XIV. It doesn't matter how good the story was. I think that expansion could have actually sent the game back into obscurity if they had gone any more in the wrong direction than they did. All right, now it's going to be a wrap for my hot take video. Now that I've got my kind of hot take, lukewarm take it as you will. Let me know what your Final Fantasy XIV hot takes are in the comment section of the video, but please be aware that other people may heavily insult you for it. So post at your own discretion, please. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. I am going to do that forum video on the posts from the other thing and for PAX East, because I'm sure they're hilarious. And that'll come out probably closer to the actual PAX East thing. So keep an eye out for that as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, take care.